experience out. So I put all my coins in the basket of playing professional. And I reached out to a lot of different agents, different people to send my film out. And then from there, that's when I went to Southeast Asia.
Welcome everybody to the highs and lows of X's and O's. I'm your host, Dr. Hillary Cauthen, or as some of my clients like to call me, Dr. C. I'm a clinical sports psychologist based in Austin, Texas, and I've been in the field for over 17 years working with individual athletes, teams, and organizations in building their mental performance and wellness programs. My passion is to assist breaking down stigmas across communities, which is highlighted in my book, Hello Trauma, Our Invisible Teammate. This is your go-to podcast where we delve into the intricate dance between mental health, performance, and success. Every week, we explore the peaks and valleys while striving for success with the insights straight from top performers and elite athletes. Join us as we uncover their stories, challenges, and mental cheat code that could be a game changer for your performance playbook. Let's get started. I am beyond excited to introduce you to our guest, Neshard Walker, who played 7 years professional basketball internationally in places like Southeast Asia, Canada, just to name kind of a few. This is my best part. He is a professional athletepreneur, and I love that terminology. I feel like I want to steal that a little bit. A part of that, he's doing tremendous work with the Athlete Mental Health Association, where he is a member and also serves on the board. And currently, we have such commonality where he is a mental health sports performance coach. So our conversation today, I just can't wait to learn from you, the experiences you have, and learn about the work you're doing. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I like to dive in. First, why don't you share with a little bit of what you're currently doing? What's your mission? What's the passion? What are you about?
I'm in all fields. Like I said, a professional athletepreneur. So my main title right now is being a mental health sports performance coach. So I help professionals from all sports and then regular kids, adults with getting through adversity. And just trying to be helpful and spread my knowledge from the experience I've been through in my life. Instead of going to school for it, I actually been through the adversity of life and made it become my lifestyle and to help others.
Right. And similarly, right, like my experience through sport and what I went through and what I witnessed has definitely gotten me into this field of passion, right? And, I love that commonality that we have, and I can't wait to learn about what experiences really allowed you to kind of know that this was kind of it for you. So I love to start with learning the play. So take me back to when you first got involved in sport, and then we'll lead into how basketball became the passion and go-to.
Sports, well, for me, basketball was the main thing that was always pushed because all my friends played it. We played football too and other sports, but basketball was the main thing because it was easier to put together. So it came natural around elementary school. We'll play in after school programs, and then middle school started to get a little bit serious. That's when we started to notice certain kids got potential talent. And then I was just athletic. That was my background, just being athletic. I think that was more genetic than skill. And my first dunk was in the 5th grade. So it was they looking at me like, okay, he might got something special. So when middle school started, I started to show a little bit of talent. And then all my friends started getting into it heavy. And I was just natural. It was raw talent. And then I just learned on my own how to put skill work together. And then from there, out of high school, transfer a couple of schools. And then from there, it just took off.
All right, so we're going to dive into it because I know it was definitely not just natural talent, because if people don't know your backstory, let's share a little bit about you had to develop some of the movements and the aspects. So share with us kind of the aspect of training your body to begin to move.
Well, I was a C-section. I was 10 pounds. So my mom had to have a C-section with me because it was early detection that my umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck, so the oxygen couldn't go to my brain. So that slowed down a lot of my development as being a normal birth. So I was born with cerebral palsy. So majority my little bit on my left, but majority on my right side. I had to learn how to walk and use my mobility. So it took a lot of physical therapy, a lot of regular therapy, and just perseverance to get through. And I made it out to me become a professional athlete that nobody could detect till, never. So I was able to play at a high level, and it worked in my favor.
And that's what I'm saying is we have all these medical tests and all that, but from your jump, you were working through moving your body at a different level to then, maybe there became that natural instinct to be good. But, do you remember any of the resiliency and difficulties of working through kind of normal movements? Do you remember that process of physical therapy?
Before 5 years old, it was all pictures. I don't really remember. I just seen pictures of me working with my physical therapist and going to physical therapy. Then after that, I had my seizure when I was like 11, 12 at a Boys and Girls Club. And then that's when I started to understand because my mom started to tell me more about like what it was and doctors and stuff. But for me, I always knew what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. So it's like anything that came with it, good or bad, I'm just going to take that and just run with it and try to fix it. Because a lot of things we try to do, we try to fix or start from scratch. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And from there, I just kept working,
Yeah.
blood, sweat, and tears, kept working.
So you were like, no matter what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it
Oh,
happen.
for sure. Because I knew it wasn't always just about me, even though I'm a selfish person. But if you don't take care of yourself, how you gonna be able to take care of others? And now that I'm
Yeah.
able to build that and be strong with it to be able to help others, I think I did a great disservice to myself
Yeah. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. I love that you reinforce that because we're in a helping profession. We are
for
giving
sure.
to other people. And one of the things that I always use is you have to be selfish before you can be selfless. You have to take care
Yeah,
of you before you can just give to other people.
yeah, yeah,
And so you're kind of like, yeah, I'm going to take care of me and then I'm going to give to
yeah,
other people.
for sure. Yeah, because I was always an observant kid growing up. I always paid attention to my surroundings, and I knew, and going to physical therapy, I wasn't the only person in there. I was my physical
Right.
therapist, but I'm seeing other kids with their physical therapists, and I'm seeing them pushing to get through it, but they couldn't. So for
Hmm.
me to be able to still be able to use not majority of my mobility, but majority of it. And the rest of them in wheelchairs. Some of them can't talk, walk, can't stand, nothing like that. And I'm like, if I got it this way, I know I can work with it to kind of like motivate them because they're still normal kids. It's just their
Yeah.
mobility isn't normal as normal kids. And now today you're seeing certain players and high levels playing with no arms and no
Hmm.
legs, and they playing at a high level. So I feel like I started a part of that trend, but
Yeah.
it's still to be determined.
I love it, right? And we
Yeah,
see a lot of that, right? We see
yeah,
the adaptive sports coming in and the Paralympics and
yeah,
more sports being created to allow, like you said, humans playing
yeah,
sports that fit with what fits with their mobility and their adversities they have to overcome to work through to actually play a game.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So, what was maybe like during that youth time? Who stood out to you as an influence, mentor, someone who allowed you to fulfill this dream and believe in it and say, "Hey, you got this."
Well, I met him through somebody. Well, my mom at the time was married to his uncle. So Alonzo Mourning was able to help me get to my favorite player because my descent is from Africa and he just recently passed the Kemba Mutombo and that was always like
Mhm.
my idol growing up because I was always a defender.
Yeah.
So he was a defensive player. So he was the main focus of like that's who I wanted to be because I didn't know I was gonna be 6'8", 6'9", 200 some odd plus pounds. I was just a kid, but I was
Yeah.
a kid in a grown man body that other people saw. So once I understood that, I knew like, okay, this is the person I want to be like growing up.
Awesome. And so you got the opportunity to like kind of see that, witness it, strive to be that, and then connect with that
Yeah.
person. How
Yeah, I was
amazing.
able to meet him in real lifetime. This is when I was like 15, 16. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So talk me through like basketball experience in high school, right? Where was
Mhm.
that? What would that look like? And then we can go into how you got to this next level.
High school was pretty cool. Played JV here in Virginia Beach, Virginia. It was cool at Bayside High School. And then my mom gave me an opportunity to transfer to another school because, kids talk. They don't talk to their parents, but kids talk to each other and probably not the coaches because everybody had favorites. But teammates talk. And they was like, man, I'm about to transfer to this school or transfer to that school. And this before private school was a trend, how it is now, and prep school and stuff.
Right.
So I started to go to a real low major private school that was a prep school before and it was called Round Academy in Norfolk. So probably about like 15 minutes away from where I'm at in Virginia Beach. And went there, killed, scored over 1,200 points in 3 years. And then from there, it's like, okay, we need to think about the next level. But our competition wasn't what it was. So every year we had different coaches, but we was able to make our own schedule. So I was able to play against good competition. And then from there, AAU came around, and then
Hmm.
that's when it's like, okay, well, I started to become ranked and ESPN 100s and all that stuff started to come out. And then from there, it's like, okay, we probably got something. So then I started taking my skill set more serious on the offensive end.
Yeah. And how old were you around this time? Like 16, 17, when it became like, I got to lock in?
Yeah, 16, 17. Yeah, 16,
Yeah.
17. Yeah.
So you're in the era of when AAU is like booming, and that's like where everyone's recruiting, small tournaments, watching you kind of being the thing.
Yeah, yeah. That's when you start to see certain players from high school go to private school, and then private school start to get the masters because they're looking at academics, of course, but your skill set, basketball wise, or what sport you played, they're gonna take that more heavy serious too. And then that's when AAU started to take off, and then that's around the time when YouTube started to
Hmm.
really become something special.
Yeah. Were you making videos, making reels at that time, or just clips of you were getting shown and putting up on YouTube?
I was on other people's YouTube and stuff like that. I always just focused on myself, like me developing
Hmm.
better in my game, and then I always knew that I knew what I wanted to do. I was always confident who I was.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that I took care of what I needed to take care of because I wasn't born or raised like a normal kid. I had defects. So I wanted to make sure I perfect my game. So when I do come in front of these cameras, I don't want them to say like, oh yeah, he's that. But no, I want them to look at me as a normal, regular kid.
Yeah. How difficult was that? Like, did you identify as labels, or were other people putting labels on you that you were trying to push away?
Nobody knew. Nobody could tell. I worked my tail off that much that nobody could tell. Even my mom will go to grocery store and see certain things. They'll look at my stature because I'm tall. But other than that, they was like, "Yo, like he don't look like he has what?" So
Yeah.
because I've worked since I was a baby in the
Yeah.
gym, lifting weights, resistant bands,
Hmm.
swimming, all type of stuff to get the mobility, and still to this day, just because I'm trained to it. So it's like
Hmm.
nobody can really detect until now that I'm talking about it more.
Right. Well, and that's what I was going to ask you because I've interviewed some other guests and had and worked through this, and they didn't share things that they had in fear of losing opportunities, right? Because at the
For sure,
time, some of this stuff was not recognizable, was not allowed to say like, okay, it's okay that this is happening. We can provide you this resource, and especially when
for
we look
sure.
at like medical things and mobility, right? Like we know the medical list is like, are they a risk or not? Am I going to take you or not? When did you tell people this part of you and this is kind of what you went through at birth and what you adapted through?
My mom and me and my mom made a pact that we would nobody they're gonna try to have to accept me as a normal kid. So we did that early on. So for me now, since when I stopped playing in 2020, why? Because of COVID. Other than that, I started to come out more because I started to notice a lot of kids through the mental health part when it started to become like ADHD, autistic, all this type of words and stuff that started to come out. When we been had that a long time ago, but they didn't know
Mhm.
how to define it. So I was
Yeah.
like, now, me and a couple others here and there, I knew I'm unique and I'm able to come out on the other end and become an actual professional and play.
Mhm.
Why not? Right? Because I can
Right.
still play at the same level. And I tell kids and adults all the time, like, don't think this is what you think it is. Because I can still play at a high level, but at the same time, I want people to know, like, you can still be. Don't treat them how they look. They still
Right.
normal, actual kids that can still be billionaire, millionaires, be able to have that opportunity like the others.
So you played your entire high school professional career
For
without
sure.
anyone knowing this until after the fact when you retired.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Would you change it now? Like would you have wanted to come out and say anything, or are you okay with the story of wait until the end?
I like how my life was now, how I did it all about because I always knew what I wanted to be, one, and then I always took a slow yes and a fast no any day of the week because I'm very patient and
Mhm.
I knew that it was going to take time. So how I took this route, and I knew my gift was basketball because 6'9", 240, not walking around every day,
Right.
but my passion is people. So it wasn't hard for me to transition. So I'm glad that I was able to have a life after basketball or, because of COVID. So life goes on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just interesting, right? When we look at like the acceptance of mental health and resources that are starting to come out, right? Like that aren't as stigmatized. We know there's still a stigma for sure, but the impact that it could have in like 15 years from now where athletes are very much more open and
Yeah,
transparent about things that they're struggling with so we can provide resources versus the athletes that went through stuff and hid it and it was
yeah.
invisible, right? It was a secret.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was able to see a lot of different lifestyles, like a lot of the world. Even though my family and my sister passed away in 2023, and she was a lesbian, so I was able to see her sexuality being around it instead of judging. So
Mhm.
they just want to be a part of society and just want to have be like regular people. So the same thing for people with disabilities. They want to be regular people. They just let you know this is how it is, and it's up to you to understand that or just get out the way. So it's nothing personal. It's just business.
Mhm. Mhm. So let's go back to your story of high school, a lot of external pressures coming up, a lot of things
Yeah,
going on. How did you navigate this space of the rankings and the recruitment and all of the external things?
I just shut out the noise and just focus. Like I said, focus on myself, and I knew that if this is what you want to do, you got to do it at a high level. And I knew growing up, I had a attitude, so I knew that if I wanted to go to the next level, I had to know like you got to control that. A part of being able to show your skill set, because I was frustrated because I'm seeing peers getting ranks. I'm seeing all my teammates and everybody around me at AAU circuit, they playing normal, left hand, right hand dribble between the legs, all type of stuff. And I had to work my tail off of that. So excuse me for being super confident and cocky, but I had to work for this.
Right.
So it's like,
And you were
I had to
proud of it.
really,
And you were like, hey, you should see what I
for sure.
did.
Yeah, yeah, that too. So
Yeah.
I was always understood like if nobody say I'm proud of you, I would say it to myself. And for me to do this and to play at a high level overseas in different countries and to be able to help others, because it's easy to help yourself, but if you can able to help others and they get through it, you did something. So
Yeah.
for me to do it this way, I'm grateful.
Yeah. So talk to me about the next steps after high school. What did it look like? Where'd you go? What'd you do?
After high school, graduated, then did a couple was undersigned camps and stuff.
Hmm.
Did that, but SATs, for me, I'm not a school guy. So it took a long time for me to study for these things. So it didn't pass those. So I had to go to JUCO. Bounced around from like 4 to 5 different JUCOs because this is what I wanted. So whatever came with it, I had to go with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So bounced around from different JUCOs from North Carolina, here in Virginia, LA, all the way up the coast to the Bay Area, San Francisco, to Idaho, to Texas,
Wow.
wherever it was I wanted to play, I wanted to play.
Yeah.
And then 2014, 15, I just went undrafted. I was like, man, it's telling me I need to go ahead and go.
Hmm.
Eligibility, I'm not really paying attention to it if I could still play another year or not. But at that time, sitting out, you had to go to another school, you had to sit
Yeah.
out, and I wasn't trying to keep doing that. So it was like, you know what you gonna do now? And then I'm getting older in the game too, so it's like you got to figure this out. So I put all my coins in the basket of playing professional, and I reached out to a lot of different agents, different people, send my film out, and then from there, that's when I went to Southeast Asia.
Wow. So we'll get to these different cultural experiences, but I first want to talk about the JUCO culture. What was that
Okay.
experience like? What was the different environments? Because you had East Coast to West
Yeah.
Coast and
Yeah.
middle of nowhere, north
Yeah.
to then south. Like, what were those cultures of JUCO like for you?
For me, one, I think all players should know this. You got to be adaptable and
Hmm.
adjustable because all players can play the game. If they're able to go to the school, no matter what the level is, you got to be able to adapt and adjust. And you got to be able to be water. You got to be able to flow with and without the system, in the system. And it was just different cultures, different styles of play from playing with kids from California, then Texas, and here Virginia, then up the coast in the Bay Area, San Francisco, Sacramento area, and then Idaho is different. So all my schools I went to, they was ranked in that area, and then the players I played with came from different countries too as well. So that kind of helped me already be prepared for what there is overseas. So when I played in Idaho, I played with players from London, Puerto Rico, Norway, Australia was my teammates. And then I played with some professionals that went to the NBA, got drafted when I played in school in Caution College in Hayward, California. And then me going to school in LA, down the east side of California. I went to Pierce College, not too far from UCLA. And those players was ready. They were athletic, more athletic than I would say on the East Coast. And then in Texas, they more stocky. These kids they grown men. They big, they strong, they able to do it all. So just seeing different styles of play, knowing that here everybody know in Virginia they know my style of play, and I'm more
Right.
passive because I want everybody to get theirs. But when I play other places, like all right, now I need to turn the switch on. So that goes again with me working on my game and knowing how to be a guard, a center, a big, and from there, it just helped me just be fluent everywhere I went overseas.
Yeah. Which I think is now the trend, right? My oldest who's 13, she's a baller. She loves hooping, right? And her
Yeah,
team is developing her to be 1 through 5. Learn everything right now. Learn how to play big. And in the middle of a game, she'll be a big. She'll then go play run the point, right? Because she's
yeah,
learning how to work through this. Because you have to have the adaptability and mobility to be able to do it because there's no need to specialize right now. She's 13. She's got to learn the skill, the court, the awareness is helping her game,
Yeah,
which was different for sure when I was playing. And so I love watching her because I'm in the middle and she's like guarding the biggest girl on the team and she's like
yeah,
playing
yeah,
post. And then next play, she'll pull up the ball and she's dribbling. She's like dishing it around. And I'm like, all right, kid, like I see you coaches. I see what you're doing.
yeah, yeah. And it helps them in life too because sometimes plan A not gonna work the way you think it should work. Don't forget or just abandon plan A. Try another way. So
Right.
I think kids need to understand, like, okay, you're not gonna always get what you want how you want it, but you're gonna get
Mm-hmm.
it, but it's gonna take some time and there's gonna be ways around it to get back to where you thought you wasn't gonna get back to. And I think
Right.
that helped them long term how to deal with their emotions, the
For
mental
sure.
breakdowns that they have, the anxiety that they have, and it helps. It definitely helps. So I'm glad coaches are starting to implement that more. That okay, you 6'5", but it's a lot of 6'5" girls that can play the 1 through 5. And I
Right.
had to understand that too, playing overseas. Like, okay, this guard is 6'2", he's cool, but if I can get a kid that's bigger than him that can do the same thing, maybe the
Mhm.
same price or cheaper, why not? Kill two birds with one stone. So that's a good look for sure.
Yeah. So of all these JUCOs, right? Obviously, that was probably not your plan to be bouncing around, but you had a vision,
Yeah,
so you
yeah,
knew what you're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what was maybe the most rewarding experience at some of those schools?
Being around all talents from different sides of the world, different thoughts, processes. And I always took everybody thought processes personal. It's like, okay, why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? How is he getting away with this? And I always knew it was business, it wasn't personal. And I think that's what a lot of kids need to learn. Like, hey, this is not about your game. This is a
Hmm.
business and what fits in their system. And you don't fit, don't take it personally. Somebody else, school or team could use you. You just got to figure that out. And that's the part that's
Yeah.
hard, but we all have time. So I feel like that was the biggest factor for me understanding like people and like, okay, I'm not going to take this personal. So that was more rewarding than me actually playing because it helped me figure out and navigate through life when I played overseas or being around in the culture that the world is today and not
Yeah.
take things personal.
Yeah. And during that time, were there any difficult moments, anything that you really had to work through and, be resilient through?
The lifestyle coming from, the East Coast where it's more like religion oriented to going to the West Coast of LA where it's a lot that's going on. It's fast paced.
Mhm.
So that was the only time doing that. And then
Yeah.
because I was already cultural being around because I went to private school where it's all different ethnicities and backgrounds,
Mhm.
but just going into the lifestyle of pace of how the lifestyle was and making sure I had it on schedule. Because once you go
Yeah.
to college, away from college, on the other side of the world, nobody's telling you when to wake up. That's on you. Right? You're
Yeah.
not at home. You're not down the street 3 hours away where your mom and dad can come pick you up. We talking about flights. So
Mhm.
that was the main thing that really had to really prepare myself for. But
Sure.
with time, it got better.
Yeah, like who in your life helped you? Like who's in your support group? Who's your circle? Like who allowed you to help you teach these life lessons?
Besides like my mom and a couple coaches, but other than that myself mainly.
Mm.
I always
Mhm.
took like I always took my mannerism and style personal because I knew that at the end of the day, if this is what you really want to do, you got to be professional.
Right.
And I took always the what's it is the phrase that they say it's okay to be a copycat as long as you copy the right cat. So
Oh, I
I always
love
had
that.
so I always made sure I took bits and pieces from everybody that I grew up with. I don't care if he was homeless, the principal, the teacher, or whoever it was. If it made sense with my motion and routine of life, I took bits and pieces from it.
Yeah. So then we go in and you're like, all right, I'm all in. I'm going
Yeah,
get some agent and Southeast Asia is where you land.
right.
What
Yeah.
was what was that next jump like, right? Was the skill faster? Were they bigger, stronger? Like what did the style play look like? How'd you adapt to the professional level?
Well, I knew being a professional, I had to be able to do a little bit of everything. So I had to work majority on my ball handling skills, shooting, of course, and then just strength because the eating lifestyle over there is different. We're not eating the same foods here,
Mhm.
like there is there.
Mhm.
Even though they're there, but it's just different.
Yeah.
So I had to make sure I had to lock in on that. And then two, I had to mentally prepare because when I got the call, it's like, well, you got 18 hours to get ready to be there for 6, 7 months. So you got to pack up, kiss everybody, thank you, hugs, kisses. You might party a little bit. Other than that, like it's time to rock and roll. So I only had half a day to get ready, and I had to be on that flight, and it was 36 hours across the world. So I had to prepare myself, first time ever leaving the country, period. So, and for me, I had agents, but I told them I wanted to go half because I knew if other people, I noticed when other people pay for it to take care of the whole bill, you're not going to appreciate it as much or give yourself all the opportunities for you to maximize your talent. So I was
Hmm.
like, you know what? I want to be a part of the process. You can still get your percent, but at the same time, I want to be a part of the process to see the business side, what happens behind the scenes, what I need to do, what's the incentives and stuff like that. And then once I started to do that, it was like, okay, I see why they get their percentage. I see why players go over there and damn, they kill themselves to make this work because this is real. So once I went there, I had to turn it up.
Yeah. And then you had
Fresh,
lots
yeah,
of stints and for how many years has you played? Like 6 or 7 overseas,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so talk to me about like where's your favorite place that you played, the team you connected the best with, like most happy memories playing?
Not enjoying it as much.
Mm.
I enjoyed it in stints when I'm here in America, but over there I didn't enjoy it as much because I was focused, locked in, everything. I was on some the Kobe mentality. I was really locked in, focused because I didn't want to disappoint myself and I didn't want to disappoint the organization, the team, my teammates because they bring us over there for a reason because they
Yeah.
believe in us. So if you don't believe in yourself, how would others believe in you? So I really took that personal to where like it was nice that I would just sit in my room and just shut off all noise and just really focus in. So I wish I would have enjoyed it more when I
Yeah.
played.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so true for a ton of these high performers that go through this, right? They're so focused on this outcome oriented goal. I
Yeah,
know I lived that life too. It's like I got to get to the next thing, got to the next thing, and I'm
yeah,
like, no, like we got to enjoy the moment. We can take the
yeah,
time, you know. And I
yeah,
see these patterns showing up in my 13-year-old. She's like, oh, I'm looking for this, this, and this. I'm like, kid, you're 13. Like you don't need to
yeah,
worry about your future and your
yeah,
college and saving money. Like you're
yeah,
13.
yeah, yeah,
But I did the exact same thing. You live that life too. I think like high performers are wired to
yeah.
focus on these outcomes and products they want. But when we look back, it's always like, man, I just wish I lived in the moment a little bit more.
Yeah. I feel like for me, now that I've sat back and sit down and relax and chill, I gave it more than I should have, but at the same time, I knew every time I raised the bar, I kept chasing my tail. So I never enjoyed that moment. So
Hmm.
it's like, that's why I feel like we missed the most because we raised
Right.
the bar every time we reach anywhere near that goal. We just raised the bar and it's like, no, stay there. So now when I train kids on their mental health and their skill set, I enjoy the moment long, and that helped them with their patience and it helped them understand, like, because they're on the inside looking out and I'm on the outside looking in because I have no attachment. So my emotions is out the window, but I let them know, like, no, we working on this for a reason. I don't care if it takes 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year. You need to perfect this, then we'll move on. And that helped with their development to a whole nother level, not even just in the classroom, in their sport, but their parents see it different too, because like I said, they're on the inside looking out. So I appreciate them reaching out to me and helping them,
Yeah.
be a part of the kids' journey.
Yeah. And I think, hearing you say like, yeah, you lost the joy for a little bit of it, right? Because you're so
Yeah,
locked in the process. We
yeah.
lose the fun, we lose the excitement. What were things that you would do to recover, to not think about basketball? Like, what did you do? What was your kind of like release?
Just relax more. And just because I was born, well, raised the only child on my mom's side. So I was always by myself. So I always took criticism. I don't care if you say anything to me, I'm not gonna take it personal. So it's
Hmm.
like I was always to myself. So I always knew that just being by yourself and getting through it instead of around it, you avoid a lot of things that that we could just I want to say bypass but breeze through. So it's like I always sat down with, okay, well, coach, my teammates, I need to start listening more instead of taking it personal. Because I'm playing in the sport where it's for other players and let alone others that sit on the bench. So it's like it's not just about me. So I feel like I that helped me a lot.
Hmm. Were there things that like you started adding into your training or your, basketball regimen to make you better? Like started focusing more on nutrition or
Yeah.
sleep or things at that point during different parts of your career?
Now, I've always been disciplined. I feel more for me, I always listen to my body than anybody else because I know my body the best. So what I added on was more laying down on the ground in my room and just letting my body just relax.
Yeah.
And then from there, I knew when I stood up, I performed at a whole nother level. And then just letting my body just speak to me and just listening to myself. Because a lot of the time, even when we lay down, our mind's still racing and we listen to a lot of the noise throughout the day. And even years back and trying to be ready for tomorrow. So a lot of that I just shut off and just later, no matter how long it take me to just relax and figure it out, I later. And then once this eureka comes, it's like, okay, then I get up. Then let's conquer and master the day.
When did you start implementing those strategies? When did you learn to do that?
2016. So
Okay, so pretty
2016,
late, right? Yeah.
yeah, pretty late. Yes, 2016 is when I started my first year with 14, 15 when I went to Southeast Asia. Then I came back home and then started do the NBA, the workouts and training. And then that 16 year, that's when I started the reach out and connect with a lot of agents and owners and GMs for NBA teams. And then that's when the year I think the Cavaliers won a championship. And I was real close to a couple of the players and the front office and development team. And then started to understand, they kept talking about just relaxing, mental health and all that. And that's when it really started to come to me like, okay, I need to just sit down, relax. Like I said, I'm always by myself and I'm used to being by myself. So I had to sit and just understand like, okay, what does he mean by that? Figure it out.
Yeah.
And then no matter how they meant to tell me, I figured it out myself to where it works for me. And then that's when I started implementing laying down on the ground, just chilling out, let my body just relax. Because it's a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
So you got to let
Yeah.
your body just heal itself and figure it out and adapt and adjust on the journey.
Yeah, and I think we can have Kevin Love to thank for some of that, right? For his
For
movement
sure.
in
Yeah.
that team and
Yeah.
that time. So let's
Yeah.
talk about it. It's a beautiful transition to talk about mental health, mental performance, exposure you had. So growing
Yeah.
up and in the sport, was there talk around the mental side of the game?
No, it was all like figure it out. You figure it out. You're a player. You want to be a pro, right? Figure it out, right? So we'll figure it out. But majority of the time, I notice when we figured it out, we'll figure it out, or somebody on the team will figure it out. But for that player specifically that the coach is talking to, he kind of like, or she kind of like shuts down and kind of like fades away. And then people in the stands understand like, why is this player not acting like he usually or she usually acts? She used to go for 20, 30, 40, 16. She used to be a great player. It all made sense last game. But they human beings. Something throughout the day happened. So
Right.
now that I'm in that space where mental health really matters and it means something, I took all that stuff that I took personal then and made it into a business to where like I'm not taking it personal when the kid shuts down, and I help them figure it out. Like you see why you ain't get to this because you ain't let the play develop. You see why you ain't do this right because your footwork wasn't there, so the shot came short. You see why your teammates don't trust you because the way you hesitant, they got to go for it, and how they go for it, they over exaggerate the play. So a lot of these things you got to be patient for because you're working with kids, and then a lot of them I treat them as adults. So they'll know, like, okay, this is how you don't like to be called a baby or a kid. So I'm gonna treat you like an adult. But at the same time, I put them in the fire, but I don't let them catch on fire.
Yeah, I love that. And you're showing them, hey, this is why you're frustrated. So now how are you going to
Yeah,
work through it? Like, here's the
yeah,
answer. Let's
yeah,
figure out how you work through the solution, to get there.
yeah, yeah. And I try not to abandon them, but sometimes you gotta let them catch on fire a little bit because a lot of things that they jump into, they couldn't avoid it, but they need to go through it. So I always understood, like, I'd rather them reach out than you forcing it on them. Because once they
Yeah.
reach out, they're open minded to understanding, oh, this is what coach meant the whole time. I done wasted the whole season trying to develop this for you. But it's better late than never.
Yeah. So your whole time, mental health was like, you're going to do it on your own. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about the mental game. We're just going to tell you the mental game is important, but we're not going to tell you how to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
That was the main thing.
that's
So
the messaging, right?
yeah. Yeah. The whole thing was that because me born with cerebral palsy, it was mental because my mental development besides my mobility was still growing. And I'm around just taking everything personal because I thought kids didn't like me and this, that, and the third. And then my mom was like, you're gonna have to figure it out. So she'll put me in therapy, just not physical, but in therapist offices, and I'm just sitting there with a dude or a lady and I'm not talking because I kept everything to myself. So now that I'm older, I'm glad I kept it in so I could be able to talk about it to help others. So I'm glad that I was able to understand that and not take it personal enough to where like it damaged me to not be comfortable with who I am as a person and as a player to help others.
So mom's trying to expose you to mental health, saying, hey, look, go talk to somebody, right? You
Yeah,
can talk through
yeah,
this, but you were like, nope, not going
yeah,
to do
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Because I was always a big kid. I was always a big kid, tall, big. So it was like they always looked at me as an adult anyway. And then my mom was like, well, I can't beat you. So it's like, shoot, you gonna have to just, the talks ain't getting through. So I'm gonna have you just figure it out. And once the pattern started coming around, like every time I do something, I always get caught. Everything I try to do something, I always get frustrated. Why is that? So that's why I'm glad I was able to sit down by myself and figure it out. And now that I found a routine to where I mastered it to help others, to understand themselves and not train players how I was and develop their own path in this game, I'm very appreciative.
If you had a resource, right, like a sports psychologist, a mental performance coach, like in your team embedded, do you think you would have used them at the time?
You know, because I wasn't even listening to my mom, coaches, teammates. I was, like I said, I was real attitude-ish. Anybody that know me growing up playing basketball, I was a wild guy. So I never really paid attention to that because thought I knew I had all the answers. So
Hmm.
back then I was naive to it. So that's another thing where I get why players like, oh, whatever. So I
Hmm.
let them get through it. So when they started to see that they were not working, they'll come open hands, open mind to like, okay,
Right.
coach, I'm ready. I'm ready. So that's why
Right.
I'm glad I'm able to volunteer and help kids with ADHD, autism, and
Yeah.
kids with disabilities to where like, I get it. I'm not here to judge you. I don't care about
Yeah.
none of that. I'm going to treat you like a human being because
Yeah.
I know in your heart, that's what you really want to be treated as.
Yeah. And I'm going to help you understand your brain. I'm going to help you be
Yeah.
better. Right. Like
Yeah.
that's the beautiful part. Once you started understanding how your brain worked, then you could figure it out a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's those things books can't teach through the
Right.
experience. And my mom always told me to get the experience, you got to go through the experience sometimes.
Mhm. So, knowing how you were and what our passion is and what we're trying to do, when do you think it's most valuable to really start teaching the mental performance and mental health in athletics? What age?
Early. It should be early, around like 9, 10.
Yeah.
Cause so I work with kids in the age, well, in the grades of 3 through 5 early,
Mhm.
and I help them understand. Like I give them a voice, one, and then two, I let them voice themselves, and three, I tell them like, okay, that works for you, and I get it. But what about your other teammates? What about everybody else? What about your mom? What about this? So before we start practice, I go tell them, go tell your mom and dad, thank you,
Mhm.
because this is opportunity that your life could change. Because I'm a big black guy, so all my kids that I train be from different denominations, different backgrounds. So they looking at me like, this is the first time I'm ever being in front of this. And my mom's letting me be in front of this big black guy, right? So
Yeah.
they're looking
Yeah.
at me like, so I just understand like different backgrounds, how they was raised, how to,
Mhm.
some players you can yell at, some players you can push a little bit harder, sometimes some players you got to be a little softer with. So me being vulnerable, understanding that, I know early on you got to tell them to be able to have that conversation with them early, like 9, 10, 11 years old, because they're still sponges. And I notice working with kids, they have no ulterior motives. They just want to have fun.
Mhm.
So I make sure they have fun in the midst of it, but let's play like professionals, but have some fun
Yeah.
in between.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's the thing, like the standard can be the standard, but you can have
yeah,
fun with it with empathy and care and the humanity. And I
yeah,
think that's the biggest piece that it sounds you and I are both trying to do of shifting that culture a little bit where we teach the humanity aspect, the what I call the person within the player.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what matters.
So I love to ask all my guests a mental cheat code, right? So for you, whether it's something you teach your athletes now as like your core philosophy or something
Mm.
that got you to where you were, what is a mental cheat code that enhances your performance?
Anything outside of the 3 words I live by when I play it and now is the first one is being patient. You got to understand the process before you go in it, because a lot of things that people do that I notice for coaches early on, they either put their expectations on that player that they didn't do, or it's like, well, they just let the player, like I said, how we went through it, had to figure it out. So I wanted to make sure I had to stay patient and be
Mhm.
ready for the process. And then the second one is being understanding and understanding like we all not the same, we all different, and everybody's journey is going to be different getting to that level. And then the third one is the toughest that I had to learn, which came easier with time, is being disciplined. And you stay with the process long enough, you'll find a lot about yourself that's like, oh man, I need to work on this too. So being disciplined is those three things, patient, understanding, and discipline really helped me with my cheat code of being successful.
I love it. And now I just want to give like what is your hope or the legacy you hope to give the athletes you're working with or the field of sport mental health?
Do not take things personal, because we take a lot of things personal. Because outside of being happy, sad, frustrated, and I think I forgot the fourth one. All the words outside of that, that's where those emotions come from. So I tell them, don't take nothing personal. I'll just tell you this so you'll know beforehand. Because a lot of things parents and I think a lot of coaches do, they just throw a lot of pressure on the kids. And it's like, how do I handle this in the game? Right?
Mhm.
Or in practice, it's like, oh, how do I? And that's when they shut down. So I tell them to don't take it personal. Be open minded to the process and let it develop as it goes. Because practice is just practice. And in the game, life goes on, but at the same time, I know we take it personal, but try not to and just keep it business. And that's the main thing that main thing I tell them. And then after that, it's gonna be okay.
I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.